Good morning. Glad you're here. The psalmist sang, "Make a joyful noise to the Lord, everybody, everywhere. Serve the Lord with gladness and with joy. Come before his holy presence with singing. Know that he is God," which underscores the fact that you and I are not. It is he who has made us and not we ourselves. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates then with thanksgiving for who he is and for what he's done. Come into his courts with praise. Be thankful to him and bless his holy name. For the Lord alone, Jesus alone, is good all the time. His mercy is forever and always. And his truth, the truth, endures generation to generation to generation to generation. So this morning, let's serve up the praise that Jesus alone deserves. Let's give him our lives in song, and let us sing. Let us make a joyful noise to Jesus. Let's stand and sing.
Secure What God takes time to build, no one but Jesus. What God our hearts would fill, no one but Jesus. What God would speak to me, no one but Jesus. What God would hear me sing, no one but Jesus. A king with a promise, the word we can trust. He is here, who broken came to save, who can free us from bondage, whose name delivers his people from shame, who reshapes all our failures and turns them to wins for his fame. No one but Jesus. What man empowers the weak? No one but Jesus. What man could die for me? No one but Jesus. A carpenter healer with hands that give life. He is here. Who broken came to save, who can free us from bondage, whose name delivers his people from shame, who reshapes all our failures and turns them to wins for his fame. No one but Jesus. No one but Jesus. A king with a promise, the word we can trust. He is here. A carpenter healer with hands that give life. He is here. The God who designed us, who walked down our roads, who died for all sinners, in 3 days he rose. He is here. Left home, took on flesh, lived a life that was blameless, who wore my cross on his back for my sin, all the guilt that was mine. He cried out, it was finished. He left home, took on flesh, lived a life that was blameless. He wore my cross on his back for my sin, all the guilt that was mine. He cried out, it was finished.
Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, and we live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe, and we live for you. Oh, we live for you, Lord. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken.
Go ahead and have a seat. We're so grateful to gather with you in worship, and we're especially glad today to be able to have our students leading us in worship. Isn't that a cool deal? Oh, come on. I told them that depending on your response to their leadership, we might have them back lead at Father's Day. So I'm really unsure about that response at this point. Yeah? Okay, all right. So glad you're here. If you're a guest with us, we are especially glad you're here. If you will, take out a smart device and you'll go to, if you need to go to the App Store, download our app. If you already have it, that'd be great. Open that app up. I'm new, and it'll take you to a page where you can fill out some information that will let us know who you are and how we can come alongside you. We're not going to sell that information to anybody. We're only going to use it to help you get on mission with us, which is what we're all about here at First Baptist. So we'd love for you to take some time, do that during the service, and then we'll contact you to see how we can partner with you in the days ahead. We're also glad that today is Mother's Day. I was thinking earlier today that were it not for mothers, none of us would be here. It's true, right? My mom had 3 kids. One was really, really smart. One's really, really good looking. And the other one was really kind. Well, what am I talking about? The third one was dashing and debonair and smart and good looking and all that stuff too. And I was the youngest, and so, what can I say? Happy Mother's Day to all of you. We're so glad you're here. In your worship guide are some things that will tell you a little bit more about who we are as a church and give you some information about some things that are upcoming. Love for you to plug in, but for now, would you turn and say hello to some folks you're worshiping near and might even say Happy Mother's Day to them.
Fall and they fall. You tell oceans to be still and they're calm. You tell sickness hit my slave and it's gone. In my weakness, God, I know you are strong. seen it. My God is over all. I believe it. I have seen it. My God is over all. I still believe it when I can't see it. My God is over all. I still believe it when I can't see it. My God is over all. You are the one above it all. I stand in awe. You're the God over all. I know no higher name, no greater throne. You stand alone. You're the God over all. I know you are the one above it all. I stand in awe. You're the God over all. I know no higher name, no greater throne. You stand alone. You're the God over all. I know.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate our students leading us in worship this morning. Appreciate all of you being here on this special day. You know, I always appreciate people looking out for my well-being. People have been asking me all weekend now, Bobby, you know what Sunday is, don't you? You know what Sunday is. And, you know, I appreciate that concern, but believe me, it's been marked on my calendar for about 6 weeks. I mean, every man knows that today is the last day of turkey season. And don't worry about me. I've bagged my last gobbler on Friday, so I had everything taken care of. No, I'm glad that you're here this morning. And I want us to open our Bibles this morning to Joshua chapter 3. And I want to talk about transitions. Because life is filled with transitions, and people respond to transition and handle transition differently in life. But as a people of God, as a people of faith, we're to have a very unique response. We're to have a response to transition that shows that we're a people of faith, that we're a people who trust in God, that God is a God that has a future. And so we are to portray transition differently in our lives. Those of us who name the name of Jesus and are committed to following after Jesus, because really all of life is filled with transition. I was looking up here at our students leading and just thinking about transitions that they go through in school, and the transitions that those that will be graduating in a couple of weeks, the transitions they're going to have going into college. There's great anticipation, great excitement, but when they get there, they found that it's really kind of an upheaval, because all the structure that they've had is now out the window. Everything is new. They're having to build a new schedule, a new framework in which they live life, and many struggle with that newfound freedom. Even our college graduates will have a difficult transition, many of them just going from being a full-time student, being a student, to transitioning into adult life, full-time work, career, those sort of things. Marriage is an adjustment. Mothering is an adjustment. Parenting, but mothers, I think, have to deal with a great many more transitions. I know in our own house, you know, I think one of the biggest challenge that mothers face, I don't see guys really struggling with it that much, but I think mothers struggle with when your children grow up and you try to have an adult relationship with your adult child. Many mothers struggle with that, I think. Always wanting to keep them a small child that you tell them what to do, tell them what they ought to be doing, that sort of thing, that kind of accountability. And I remember when Hunter was home from Alabama during the Christmas break his senior year. Patty and I were sitting in the den, and Hunter's going out the door, and he says, "I'll be back later." It's like 9:30 at night. He said, "I'll see y'all later." Well, Patty said, "Well," she just blurted out, "What time are you going to be home?" Well, I immediately said, "Or since you're 22, just come in when you want to." So he never said, he just shut the door behind him. And I looked at Patty and said, "Really? what time are you going to be home? And she said, oh, it's just so hard adjusting. And it is. Transitions are hard. Some transitions are simple, they're expected, you just have to roll with it. Others are unexpected. And what is really telling in our faith journey is when life hits us in the face in a way that was completely unexpected. Many of you could stand here this morning and talk about unexpected ways that life just blindsided you. How you never anticipated going through a divorce. How you never expected your spouse to be diagnosed with this illness. How you never expected to lose a child. How you never expected to lose a spouse at such an early age. And so life can hit you hard. Mike Tyson said everybody's got a game plan until you get hit in the mouth. Life's going to hit you, and every time you get hit by life, you've come up against a transition. Things are never going to be the same again. And so how do we adjust to that? How do we, when we find ourselves up against that wall, when we find ourselves up against that barrier, when we are at the brink of change, when we are standing at the riverbank and on the other side is an unknown future and behind us is life as we have known it, that which is familiar, that which is predictable and comfortable. And now here we are, we're standing on a riverbank looking into that which we do not know. This unpredictable future. What do you do when you find yourself at that point of transition in life? Well, what you do as a person of faith is you cross over. You step over. You go stepping off that bank through the water to the other side. Because really, that's the theme of our text today. In Joshua chapter 3 and 4, 22 times, you will find the phrase, to cross. It's a theme that runs through these two chapters. That it is your responsibility as the people of God to cross over into the land of promise that has been given to you. Now, Israel has had a terrible past when it comes to transitioning. Now, they've always talked a good game. 400 years of Egyptian captivity as the people of God. They talked a good game. Talked about someday God's going to deliver us. They talked with hope. They talked with faith of what God was going to do to deliver them. But then when they were delivered in a way they didn't expect, when there were struggles and battles, when there were things to overcome, they didn't do well. In fact, they said, let's kill these leaders. Let's appoint our own leaders that will take us back. Poor transitioning. For 40 years, they wandered in this wilderness. An entire generation of Hebrew males died off, that rebellious generation. Now only Joshua and Caleb are left, and here they are at the riverbank. They're about to transition again as they look across that river, and they're looking to the land of promise, everything that they have ever anticipated. And so maybe this transition will be different. And I think there's wonderful lessons here for us as we deal with the transitions in our life that will inevitably come when life hits you with the expected, when life hits you with the unexpected. How do we transition through that? How do we transition into that next season, that next chapter in a way that is healthy, in a way that is productive, in a way that maintains our witness as a people who depend upon God? Well, the first thing I would say to you, borrowing from this narrative in Joshua chapter 3, the first thing that I would say to you is that you need to keep listening to God faithfully. Whenever you're there at the point of change, when you're at the point of transition, when life is never going to be what it used to be, regardless of how bad you want it to be, when life simply is not ever going to be what you want it to be again, in that moment, you need to keep listening to God faithfully. It's what Caleb did. And you'll notice here in verse 7, or what Joshua did. It says, now the Lord said to Joshua, this day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. Now, he's not saying to Joshua, now, Joshua, I'm going to duplicate everything I did with Moses, that we're going to recapture the past and everything's going to be like it used to be. No, what he's saying is that just like Moses listened to me, just as I led Moses, I will lead you. Just as I led Moses to lead my people as far as I could lead him, I will lead you. It's going to look completely different, but I will lead you. And just as Moses listened to the leadership of God's voice, Joshua, you just keep listening during this time of transition, and I will get you to that place. If you will listen faithfully, I will get you to that place where God would have you to be. And so when you and I are transitioning in life, the challenge is to keep listening to God. Because many people will turn to God when their foundations are shaken. When something happens in life that rocks your world, when something happens that shakes the very foundations of a person's life, you'll find individuals, they will in fact turn to God. Only to find that it was God shaking the foundations. It wasn't circumstances. God may be using circumstances. He may be using tragedy. We know that God causes all things to work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. Doesn't mean God caused everything to happen. Doesn't say everything that happens is good. But what it says is that God can take these broken circumstances in life that have hit you in the mouth, that have hit you in the face, that have kicked you in the grill, and God is able to take that and he can make it into something good if you will follow after him, if you will listen to him faithfully. Because that's God's way. The way God will use that time of transition, it's a time of growth. It's a time of maturity. And it's God's way of taking that brokenness, those circumstances, and moving you from where you are on this side of the river to where he would have you to be on the other side of the river. C.S. Lewis gives a vivid picture of this. C.S. Lewis writes that when he began his faith journey, he thought it would involve maybe changing some wallpaper and hanging some pictures up on the wall. He said, but all of a sudden God starts knocking down walls, starts building rooms. I thought the journey of faith was going to be a nice little peaceful cottage, a nice little cottage, but God said to me, no, I'm building a palace in which I'm choosing to live my life. And so you have to keep listening in these times of transition. A second thing, borrowing from Joshua's experience in the nation of Israel, as we enter into these times of transition, knowing that it's God trying to move me from where I am to where he would have me to be, to grow me up, to mature me, to give me more experience. The second thing that is necessary is that you have to keep plunging ahead expectantly. You have to keep plunging ahead expectantly. Because see, God has a dog in this hunt. God has a plan, God has a purpose. God has a vested interest in our going forward as the people of God. I want you to listen to verses 8 through 13. Now the Lord is speaking to Joshua. He said, you shall moreover command the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, saying, when you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. Now, he doesn't tell them what's going to happen, but when you're following his instructions, there's just this anticipation. Doesn't tell them what's going to happen right here. It's building anticipation of what's going to happen. You shall moreover command the priests who are carrying the Ark of the Covenant, saying, when you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan. Then Joshua said to the sons of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. Joshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, that he will assuredly dispossess from before them and from before you the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Hivite, the Perizzite, the Girgashite, the Amorite, and the Jebusite. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over ahead of you into the Jordan. Now then, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, 1 man for each tribe. Now, you and I have the beauty of hindsight. We know why these 12 men have been chosen. Each one is going to take a memorial stone from the river. And when you come to chapter 4, verses 2 and 3, you see the full explanation of this, but there's an anticipation, there's an expectancy that we're going to be successful. Because we are listening to the voice of God, there's this expectancy, there's this anticipation. We're going to be successful, so get 12 men prepared. Designate 1 man from each tribe. It shall come about, verse 13, it shall come about when the soles of the feet of the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of all the earth, rest in the waters of the Jordan waters of the Jordan will be cut off, and the waters which are flowing down from above will stand up in one heap. Now, we've seen the expectancy, the anticipation. Pick 12 men. I know we're going to be successful. I'm expecting to be successful because we're listening to the voice of God. Now, a little background to this. Normally, the Jordan River would be very easy to cross. But during the flood season, the waters run high. They run rapidly. It can be very dangerous. It can be very, very threatening. But the people of God, they're getting all of these specific instructions to go, how they're going to go down to the river, what the priests are going to do. They're going to set their foot into the water, and when they put their foot into the water, they anticipate something happening. But don't you know, just human nature being what it is, the history of the people of God, knowing us as we know ourselves, don't you know that there were some people, some Israelites sitting back there in their tents, they're all camped out along the banks of the Jordan River, knowing that the promise of God is on the other side, the land of promise is on the other side. They're hearing all these instructions about crossing this river. The water is running at flood levels. Don't you know that there were people saying, oh, now, wait a minute, why don't we just stay here and pray about this? Oh, let's just be still. Let's just wait on God. Don't you know there were people doing that? I mean, that sounds like real flowery spiritual language. And it's always humored me in over 30 years of ministry how people use that kind of sappy spirituality language about waiting. Let's just wait and pray about it, to cover up their disobedience, their unwillingness to go forward. Be leery of any theology that is tempting to stay where you are. Good theology is always forward. Scripture says our God is a God that is making all things new. That means all the new things that God is making is out there in front of us. And if you're just wanting to stay put, pray about it, you're going to miss out on what God's doing in the future. And we can try to mask it in all this kind of spiritual jargon. You ever seen the bumper sticker, let go, let God, or the t-shirt, let go, let God? Doesn't that sound real spiritual? It's terrible theology, though. Sounds good, just bad theology. That saying, let go, let God, was part of what's called the Keswick movement back in the early 1960s. And it's really kind of goes through cycles. It'll catch back on every once in a while. You'll see that bumper sticker, let go and let God. Sounds really good. It's not good theology, though. Good theology is trust God and get going. That's good theology. Trust God and get going. The people of God are always called to move forward in faith, to move forward expectantly, that it's only as we embrace this unknown future It's only as we embrace the tension of knowing and not knowing, the now and the not yet, that we really portray ourselves as a people of God on a mission going forward. Our future is always out there. Transitioning is God's way of moving us along. Trust God and get going. The French general was asked in World War I his opinion of which side he thought would win. I thought his answer was very profound. He said the side that advances, the side that goes forward, the side that is on the offensive and not couched down and entrenched defensively in fear, the side that advances. It's true in churches, it's true in organizations, it's true in business, it's true in athletics. Any team or any organization, any church that's going to be successful, that is going to experience victory and success, it does it as it has an eye for the future. I was reading in a business journal recently, there were some interesting statistics. It said out of the 20 largest companies 40 years ago in this company, out of the 20 largest companies in this country 40 years ago, only two out of 40 are still in the top 20 today. All right, let's take a smaller time frame and a bigger sample group. The statistics reveal that over the past 25 years, what has happened over the past 25 years is that out of the 100 largest companies in the U.S., in the past 25 years, only half of them even exist today. It's true in business, it's true in church. The strategies that get us to where we are today are not the strategies that will get us into the future. Good theology always propels you forward. It always propels you forward, never backwards. The purposes of God are always fulfilled in the future, not in the past. When Frank Howard was the late Frank Howard, former coach at Clemson University, football coach, and this was back in an era when most of your athletic directors were former head football coaches, and Frank Howard eventually became the athletic director of athletics for Clemson University. And about the time that Frank Howard became director of athletics is when Title IX came on the scene. And Title IX really changed the dynamics of NCAA athletics because it required every university to have the same number of scholarships for female student athletes as they had for male student athletes. And so universities, you had a certain time frame to get this accomplished, and you had to do it by a certain time to avoid a penalty. And so universities were scrambling. They were dropping male sports to add female sports to get this balance between female scholarships and male scholarships. Well, somebody went to Frank Howard and said, Frank, we've come up with a strategy. An athletic committee said, Frank, we've got an idea about adding a female crewing team. Crewing team is made up of 15 members. This will add 15 female scholarships to our ratio. And Frank Howard was sitting there perplexed, and he said, crewing? He said, no, what's crewing? And they said, well, Coach, crewing, rowing, it's rowing a boat. He said, rowing a boat? He said, we ain't gonna have no sport at Clemson where you sit down and go backwards. It's always about forward. Church, business, every organization that has a cause is successful in the future only as they are driven to the future. The strategies that get us to where we are today will not take us into the future that God has in store for us. And so it's true in life as we come up against these transitions in life, as God is moving us to the other side of a river, to another place other than where we are right now. We have to be convinced that it's a part of His purposes. And so a final thing in light of that is that you have to keep believing God's promises obediently. So as you're going through this transition, when life hits you in the face, when it's a very real temptation to rebel, why did God let this happen to me? I'm just going to go out and do this. And we think that tragedy and hardship is some kind of license to go out and do something reckless. Oh, I can't believe God let this happen to me. Yeah. That same script. When in fact, that is a time to keep believing in the promises of God obediently. And I want you to see it here in verse 14. So when the people set out, underscore that in your mind and in your text. So when the people set out, they didn't stay in their tents. Flood waters look dangerous. Let's just stay here. Let's just pray about it. No. They responded with obedience. So when the people set out from their tents to cross the Jordan, with the priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant before the people, and when those who carried the Ark came into the Jordan, and the feet of the priest carrying the Ark were dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks all the days of harvest. The waters which were flowing down from above stood and rose up in one heap, a great distance away at Adam, the city that is beside Zarethan. And those which were flowing down toward the sea of Arabah, the Salt Sea, what you and I would call the Dead Sea in the New Testament. The term Dead Sea isn't found in the Old Testament. They were completely cut off, those waters. So the people crossed opposite Jericho. And the priest who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan, while all Israel crossed on dry ground until all the nation had finished crossing the Jordan. You see what happened when the people responded obediently. This is what I need you to do. These are your instructions. And so the people set out. When they were obedient to the instructions that they were given, it's then they saw the faithfulness of God to his promises. That's oftentimes lost upon this Western culture in the life of the church, that when everybody wants to claim the promises of God, nobody wants to talk about the premises. There's a premise to every promise. And so the people were obedient to the instructions that they received. And when they were pursuant to obedience, now they saw the faithfulness of God to his promises. Have you noticed something in some of these Old Testament narratives, especially early on in Israel and the Hebrew history, them moving out of Egypt, wilderness wanderings, coming into the land of promise? I mean, you get all these varied kind of instructions. You get all these different accounts of how God has revealed himself and manifested himself to his people. I mean, remember when they left Egypt, they come up against the Red Sea, and God himself parched the waters of the Red Sea, and the Hebrews crossed. But now, when it comes to the Jordan River, he's saying that I want the priests, once they put their foot into the water, then the waters will part. Why different? One occasion, he would tell Moses to speak to the rock so that water might come forth. On another occasion, he tells Moses to strike the rock so that water might come forth. Why all the variety? Why all the different specific instructions? I think it's God saying, I need you to trust me and not techniques. I need you to trust me and not programs, not your traditions. Maybe God knew his people better than they knew himself, so he never did anything twice in a row here because he didn't want it to become a tradition. Well, that's not the way we've done it before. So God just changed it up every time. And it's his way of saying, you need to trust me. And that's really what it's about. It's about who's in control. You gonna trust me? You're gonna trust yourself, your traditions, your programs, your way of doing things. what worked in the past. Mario Andretti, IndyCar driver, retired. Mario Andretti once said that when driving an Indy car, if you feel like you're in control, you're not going fast enough. I make the same analogy in the life of faith. If you feel like you're in control, like everything is manageable and comfortable and predictable, if you feel like life is in control, then you're not in the faith lane. Because living life in the faith lane, it's about tension. It's about feeling out of control because I'm walking away from this familiar past to an unknown future. So it's a little bit like being out of control. See, believing in God, believing and having trust in Him and His words and in His instructions, even in the most challenging of times, when you just continue to trust His instruction book, living by His principles and His precepts, it's the way we stay flexible. Remember when you were a kid, you play with Play-Doh? You leave Play-Doh out, it gets hard. It's where you can't mold it anymore. Same thing happens to us. If we're not intentional in our faith, if faith is just something we bring to the sanctuary and we just set it out here, it's going to get hard and unmoldable. But if you're always taking faith with you like Play-Doh and you're always playing with it, you're always molding it, you're always allowing faith to mold you, you stay flexible. The older we get, the more intentional we have to be. Our bones get brittle in old age. Our faith can get brittle as well. If we're not intentional about leaning into this uncertain future. That's how you transition well. The more flexible you are, the more flexible you remain, the better you will transition in life. Father, our desire is to be a flexible people. Our desire is to be a people molded by you. Our desire as a people is to be a representation of those who transition well in life. That when life hits us in the mouth, when circumstances and the wheels start to fall off in life, that we remain steadfast and leaning our shoulder into a future that you are even now preparing for us. Father, we know that this kind of faith, this kind of life cannot be accomplished apart from a very personal relationship with you. That this kind of being comfortable, being uncomfortable cannot happen apart from a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so, Father, I pray this morning that if there's someone here that has never embarked upon that journey, that has never answered that call of your Spirit to follow you, that, Lord, this might be their day of salvation, that this might be their day of deliverance, that this might be their day of a new beginning. For others, Lord, that need a church home, that this would be their day of becoming a part of a church family, of really grasping that metaphor of what it is to be a part of a family that serves together, that endures together, that experiences together. And so we give this time to you and to the bidding of your Spirit. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
For more information, give us a call or visit us online at firstlubbock.org. Check out our other worship times, Sundays at 8:15 or 11 a.m. Experience these online, or come visit us at Broadway and Avenue V in Lubbock. Download our mobile app to experience even more from First Lubbock. Thanks for watching. God bless and have a great week.